Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Friday, June the 23rd, 2023. Been looking at the story of Abram and how he went down into Egypt kind of his own accord, perhaps not trusting that God in the midst of the famine would take care of him, because it's very clear that the Bible says, there's a famine and Abram went down. It's not that he was directed. Then he kind of takes matters in his own hands again because he fears that the Egyptians, seeing how beautiful his wife Sarai is, may take her and kill him if he's her husband. So he says, tell him you're my sister. Well, she actually was his half-sister, so it wasn't a total lie, but he did misrepresent the relationship. And sure enough, as we heard yesterday, when they get to Egypt, the officials of Pharaoh were overcome with her beauty, and she was taken into his house, the Pharaoh's house. And in return for that, he showered Abram with a lot of, financial blessings, sheep and oxen and male donkeys, male and female slaves, female donkeys, and camels. And that brings us to verse 17. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And so Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you've done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and be gone." I've been telling the story of an incident that happened to me back in college. My senior year, I was lazy, I guess you'd say. I had a course that I didn't show up for and procrastinated dropping it, waited too long, and so it passed the point where I would have lost the money and I would have gotten, like a 0 grade or something. So I thought I'd take matters into my own hands, kind of like Abram does in our story. So I go to my football coach, I explain the situation, and he talks to a dean and somehow works it out that I drop the course. I'm not penalized either academically or financially. Problem solved. Well, no. Turns out there was an unintended consequence for me as well as there was for Abram. In my case, my brother was a freshman that year, and they had a policy at the university that the second child, if the first one is a full-time student, fully enrolled, I forget, 15, 16 credits, whatever it was, then the second child could go full-time for half tuition. But the minute that I dropped that course and dropped below full-time status for that semester, that endangered my brother's half tuition. When I realized that, I realized I'm just a little bit too clever for myself. And so I went back to the coach and I explained the situation, explained, what I had done. And he looked a little, as I recall, looked like he was a little frustrated with me because he had pulled some strings for me and now I had kind of dug myself a hole. Well, Abraham had done that too. He thought he was being clever. I'll say she's my sister, not my wife, so they won't harm me. Never imagined that he was probably thinking that as her brother they would negotiate, if Pharaoh wanted to take her to be his wife, that there'd be some kind of negotiation that Abram somehow could manage that situation and get them safely out of Egypt. But this is a Pharaoh. This is the king. He just takes her to be his wife. And so now, even though he's showered with these financial blessings, Abram finds himself in a bit of a hole. Devin Biles, who we've been looking at, who teaches at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, points out the idea, the unintended consequence, I guess you'd say, are these plagues. Same word here for plague that we see in the 10 plagues in the story of Moses taking the people of Israel out of Egypt. The term also seems to indicate leprosy, some kind of a skin disease. Doesn't really explain how Pharaoh discovers that Sarai was Abram's wife, but but probably puts two and two together. All of a sudden he brings her into his house, and all of a sudden these bad things happen. It's not too much of a stretch to say that he pinpointed the bad things happening, the plagues, the leprosy, whatever it was, with Sarai coming into his harem. Devin Biles also points out that phrase that I took her to be my wife, in some translations is translated as I might have taken her, which would imply that nothing sexual had taken place. Other translations, including the NRSV that I read from, says I took her, which leaves open the possibility, doesn't necessarily say one way or the other, of some sexual union having taken place. And when you get into the construction of the word construction in the Hebrew language, it kind of leaves open both possibilities. And so you'll see some scholars argue that the plagues befalling Pharaoh's house and so forth keeps her from doing anything with Sarai, and so Sarai's virtue is protected, I guess you would say. Others would say that no, probably something happened, and but he again makes this connection. David McLemore, the other writer that we've been kind of looking at, describes this in this way. He said, God broke in and afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues. And Pharaoh saw what was going on. He calls Abram, he rebukes him and sends him away. He had entered, Abram that is, as a man full of hopes and dreams. He left as a man fully exposed for his shortcomings and sins. Pharaoh sent him away with riches, but that would not necessarily make the rest of his life any easier. His plan failed, as our plans always do, as mine did back in college. Try as he might, Abram can't ultimately thwart the plans of God. And so God, as he always does, is about to have the last word. So we'll pick the story up there tomorrow and kind of finish it up with how Abram's ill-advised journey down to Egypt, even more ill-advised strategy of describing Sarai as his sister instead of his wife, kind of puts him in a hole, digs himself a hole that he can't easily get out of. And so, again, we'll finish the story tomorrow. Hope you have a great day today. Looking forward to wrapping things up with you tomorrow on Saturday. Until then, take care. Bye.